The capacity to serve people with mental health issues in America is remarkably small. It is remarkably small. It began to get phased out in the 50s and into the early to mid-1960s because people like the ACLU didn't want the stigma on people of having mental illness or disease. So it was basically phased out. All sorts of mental hospitals were closed in this country. Now we have 18 beds per 100,000 people in this country. That's woefully inadequate, I think. I think my next guest would agree. Dr. Elinore McCance-Katz is the former Assistant Secretary for Mental Health and Substance Abuse from 2017 through 2021. Doctor, thank you for being here.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for inviting me.
You know, I look at these statistics. 29% of those with serious mental illness receive no mental health services at all. On the streets of America, the homeless, 67% have mental health or substance use disorders or both.
Correct.
We're woefully inadequate when it comes to mental health, and it does go back to the 50s and 60s. And there was this push that we didn't want to stigmatize people. We didn't want to label people. Well, as a result of that, we've gone down a road that's been very unproductive, to say the least. Your thoughts?
Well, my thoughts are if you want to destigmatize mental illness, treat people with mental illness. We have treatments that work. These people who right now are trapped homeless on the streets or incarcerated mainly, are unable, the most severely mentally ill are unable to get the services that they need because they simply don't exist in this country. There has been a decline in the number of hospital beds for the severely mentally ill, as you said, since the 1950s. And this compares, the 18 per 100,000 in our country compares to 40 to 60 beds per 100,000 in other countries, including Europe. So we really don't have the resources to care for these folks. What happens when we don't care for them? Because their brains don't work right, they get into trouble. They often will engage in criminal behavior, sometimes to support their drug habits, sometimes because their thinking is so impairing that they may damage property, attack others, and then they end up in jail.
Yeah, or dead or somewhere. You know, mental illness in Canada, they offer you the assisted suicide deal. I hope we don't do that in America. I mean, that's what they offer in the UK and Canada. Oh, you're mentally ill? Well, then just do this. This is not a flippant question. This is a serious question. Are we more nuts today than we have been in the past? And it's a serious question. With all the pressures of modern society, social media, computers, whatever it is, are there more people that need mental health interventions than there have been in the past?
Yes. And for the reasons you just mentioned, but also when you look at what's available on our streets in terms of illicit drugs and cannabis products. So two of the things that
Stop right
I
there.
see.
I want to focus and circle that right there. Marijuana, readily available, legalized in numerous states. What has that done to the state of mental health in America?
For the patients that I serve, and I have chosen to serve people who have serious mental illness, addictions, and are incarcerated. I see marijuana as one of the main factors that causes them to relapse to psychosis, and which predicts that they will be jailed over and over again.
And to be fair,
drugs.
Marijuana today is far more powerful, 100 times more powerful than it was in 1975, for example. So it's a different drug today, far more powerful, isn't it?
It is, and we all often like to look to our European neighbors and talk about how great things are there. In European countries now, they call marijuana a hard drug, and they call it a hard drug because the THC concentration is so high. And you can buy in this country extracts, sometimes they're called wax, that can have THC concentrations over 95%. So these are incredibly impairing drugs. We know they damage the brains of our children. And to me, it's kind of the big lie that somehow this is a medicine, that somehow this is something that it does not cause harm. Simply isn't true. And there are reams of research data on this now.
Reams of it. I happen to agree with you on that. Not everybody agrees with you on that. Some friends of mine vehemently disagree. I'm not a user, so I don't weigh in on it. I mean, I was in college once. I'll give you that, doctor, but it's been a long time. All right, fair enough. What do we need to do? We've got a couple of minutes here. What do we need to do to reinforce our mental health safety nets in this country? What needs to happen, and fast?
Three things. One of the first things is to build out the community mental health centers so that they can serve the most seriously mentally ill. We have approaches that include teams that can go in the community to serve, for example, unsheltered homeless who are seriously mentally ill and addicted. So we need to build that out. We need to increase the number of hospital beds. We can do that by an act of Congress that would make it possible for Medicaid to pay for people with serious mental illness who need to be hospitalized. And we need more people to work in the mental health field. We just need a great increase in the number of practitioners because it is so difficult, whether you have insurance or whether you don't, it is very difficult to get mental health care in this country.
Dr. Elinore McCance-Katz, I really appreciate you being here. I want you to come back again because I think there's a lot to cover here, and people need to realize when you've only got 18 beds per 100,000, I can find 18 people that need, intervention on a stroll through any city for about 15 minutes. That's a fact, and that's a sad state of affairs. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for inviting me, and thank you for your interest in this issue.
Yeah, we'll do it again. Absolutely. This is an important topic, folks. It's an important topic. You wonder why you have all these problems because they closed the mental health hospitals in the 1950s and 60s. They boarded them up, closed them. That has to be changed. That has to be changed.